So now the gluing is done. I've removed the clamps. As you can see, there's a little bit of the paper still stuck to it, but we'll sand that away. The joint is pretty smooth, but now we have to sand everything, making sure it's all right. As you can see here, we got some chips off when planing this, but this will be hidden by the headstock veneer and the nut, but we want to try to avoid these, so you might see I might fill them in. Can you see that properly? Yeah, good chips there. So now we're going to sand this. We're going to use the fingerboard leveling beam just to make sure the surface is smooth, and then we're going to start routing the truss rod and carbon fiber slots. Okay, so what I've done here is the neck blank is now sanded, and I've marked the center line on it again. Same way we did before with the center line ruler. This, and then I've placed these floorboards to where they're at the same height approximately as this, and that's just to make these have something to sit on, because we're not going to use a ball bearing router bit now. We're going to use this dowel frame, and marked up the position of the truss rod. I used to before to have it a bit out, but now I'm trying to recess it so it's just below the nut is where the truss rod tool will enter. So mark that up. That's just approximate. We'll have to go a little bit above or a little bit longer, and then we'll just slide it off. What's that mean? Well, what I mean is, if we go too far, we'll just place some wood in to have it come further forward. That's what I really mean. And then we find a router bit that is the same size as the truss rod. If you can see that, and this is the one we're going to use. As you can see, there's no ball bearing on it, so we're going to have to work that out some other way. Also, there's no edge here for us to go to, and if we did use a ball bearing and we used just one of these, we'd have to make sure to push that way all the time. And if we used both of these lined up to the center line, the ball bearing would jump around, try and change direction, so it wouldn't be completely straight. So what we're using instead is this insert that goes into the base of the router. We're going to line that up completely with the center line, and then move these boards in, screw them in place so that these aren't going anywhere and this can't go anywhere. So that's what we're going to do now. I need to move the camera just a little bit, but hopefully you'll still be able to see what I'm doing. So, and this is a bit tricky. You need to find boards with perfectly straight edges, otherwise the channel for the truss rod will be sort of fishtailing, and they also need to be long enough. Luckily, a neck isn't that long. If we're doing this on a base body, I would be in trouble because I don't think I have long enough boards for that. So this is now dead straight there, and we'll have to move this along, and then That's a little bit off. Let's see. That's probably off up here. So just keep doing this until it's completely straight. And if it's not 100%, it's not a crisis, because we will be wedging the truss rod in place. I know a lot of people don't. Some people want to leave the truss rod unglued, but I like to put wood, just thin slits of wood on top of the truss rod, to push it down in the center so that we have more to work with backwards, and also to have the fingerboard being glued to wood instead of tape or just air, because I don't think that's very good. So as you can see, we're just shy here, so we're going to move this a little bit forward and then start the process again. You want to keep them so that you're well in front, because obviously the bit is going to go, this is where the slanted stuff begins, but you're going to route past that. So we need to make sure that these boards are far enough protruding from the slanted edge of the neck. So we're going to start again. I'm in center there. And center there, but this is off. There we go. And I have to do the front again. There's a little bit of wiggle here. I want to take that out. But you don't want the boards to squeeze this guide, because that will make routing hard on yourself. Okay, so there we are, as best you can. And that's very tight. Might be too tight here at the end. That's gonna be a problem. Okay, so I'm gonna have to move the screw a bit, but I'm going to put this in place first. That's nice, firm, but it's too firm down here. It's too tight. Just gonna make sure it can move smoothly, and then screw it down again. Okay, so that's very nice, very tight, but not too tight. I can still move the router through there. So that's nice. Okay, now we're going to set up the router, and we're obviously going to be doing this in tiny increments, because we don't want tear out, nor do we want the router bits to burn, because that can happen if you don't go easy on them. So make sure to always unplug your router before changing collets and bits. This is why I'm dying to get the Triton router. That's my tool that I'm longing for, because I think it has a lot more power than this, and I think the motor runs smoother with varying loads. So basically, if you're going to hit a harder part of the wood, then I think it'll run smoother than this one. It's cheap and useful, but in all honesty, it's not the best router that the money can buy. So just make sure you can move it all along. Yeah, that's fine. And now the position of the router like this doesn't really matter because you are moving along the insert. This is good. It might be a little tight here, but we'll be able to move that along. Yeah, so we're going to do that. I'm going to put ear plugs in and then my dust mask on, then we're going to start routing. Okay, so these are all routed now. Same process as the other one, as the truss rod rather. So these fit perfectly. They're just below. And this will fit, however it's supposed to be snug, but it's too snug. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a thin piece of wood, wrapping some sandpaper around it. I'm just going to work this slot until it slides in without excessive force. Okay, so there it's snug, but not too snug. Force it in. Just presses in. It's supposed to go a little bit further back, but this is good for now. So what we're going to do now is mark up the center here, and center here, and center here, and then draw up a rough neck shape and saw that off. Now, personally, I want to keep as much wood as possible because, yeah, I'm sort of cheap that way. I don't want to discard wood, so I'm going to try and cut as far to the line as possible and then start sanding it. Once we have it roughly in place, we're going to glue everything. As you can see, I've already radiused the fingerboard using one of these radius boys. This is 14 and 16. I took 14 for this. I usually use 16, but this is a different guitar, so I wanted to use something different. So we're gonna roughly cut this out and we're gonna start shaping the headstock soon. Okay, so it's roughed it out now. Make sure to stay well clear of the headstock area. You don't want to cut into that because obviously we're going to slant it. And as I see, this might be a little bit short, so we might have to add on to that. And we're going to cut it askew and then glue on another piece of wood. This is going to be covered by veneer on the front and the back anyway. And we might even create a false heel. So remove the double stick tape and we'll get bandsawing. Okay, so now we've got a rough cutout and we're now going to glue the carbon fiber and the truss rod in. I know a lot of people don't like gluing the truss rod in, but I like it. It still moves. Everything's fine. So, and also these are covered. I could see if you had like a Gibson style where it's just a long threaded stick pole. You don't want to glue that in, but this is covered. And I've done all my guitars and the truss rod still works perfectly. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to use wood glue, I'm going to use polyurethane glue for this. Carbon fiber rods will be protruding, but we're going to cut those off later. And it will have the same slant on it. This will make sure that the headstock stays stable. As you can see, we had a very good glue joint, both sides, so this will be fine. What I didn't do, what I should have done, is to thickness plane the headstock, but nothing to do about that now. So we're just going to have to put that on the belt sander. So I'm going to set up now and then we're going to get ready for it. Alright, so now we're set up. I can already see that this is going to be way too small. We're going to have a, well, it's not way too small, but we're going to have to add wood here. But we'll do that once everything's glued and we're ready to shape the headstock. We're going for a reverse headstock on this one. So what we're going to do is place glue in the slots and then place tape over it to keep the glue from popping out. The tape is going to be removed, and as luck would have it, these sides that we cut off are perfect for clamping. Now we're not going to be clamping down onto the table, just this so that we can move it around instead of the side, so that it can stay on its own and get glued. You can keep the bench available for other stuff. Just turning this around. You have a cleaner edge here. Just going to put it straight up to that. Going to put glue in, tape, and then clamp it on. Now this glue, the polyurethane, it expands when it dries, and that will keep everything in place. We're going to use quite a bit of this, but not to, because we're going to get squeeze out, and that squeeze out on this we want because, as I said, it expands when it dries. But we want to be careful around the end of the truss rod. Just try to keep it from basically the joint and back, because we don't want the glue to get into the truss rod tool side. And also it doesn't look good, we have to pick that away anyway. But for the carbon fiber rods, we're going all the way. We are also going to spread this around because we want the glue to be pretty even. So I'm going to go from here and back for the truss rod. Not all the way back either, because you don't want the glue to get into the other side of the truss rod where the thread meets the other sides. So you're going to smush that around a bit. Just getting a little stick. I know you can buy glue brushes and stuff. I don't use those because these little sticks are made to skewer meat, and they're thin enough to get anywhere. They're cheap, you get like 1 million in one package, and they do almost anything. You can use them to plug screw holes, plug holes where the strap buttons go. And I place them outside a bit and I slide them into place so that I'm sure that the glue gets spread around evenly. And then we are going to wipe off the excess. Since I don't want the glue to move around too much with the truss rod, I don't slide that in. I wouldn't be able to anyway. Okay, so now get the squeeze out of the way. Now we're going to tape it. And this is very strong glue, but it removes if you don't get all the squeeze out of the way, it'll sand off easily or scrape off because it's kind of bubbles up when it dries. So that's one of the good qualities about this. Okay, that's good enough. So now we're going to put tape on. I'm using the super low tack tape that I used earlier, because we don't want the tape to stick all that much. We just want something to make sure that we can get the wood off and also keep the expanding glue in place. So you have quite a bit of working time, but you don't want to work too slowly either. So now the tape is in place. You see my gloves all shut up. Okay, so now we're going to find the straightest side, and that will be the trying to place this over the carbon fiber rod and the truss rod at the same time. Just gonna move this out a bit so I can get the first clamp on. Okay. There we go. And now I'm going to do the other side. And one clamp on this side. The clamps fit on both, fortunately. Okay, so now we're going to put a second clamp on back here. As I said, we're clamping it just to this piece of maple. We're not going to clamp it to the table like we did when we were joining the headstock and the neck. Now make sure it's tight, because this glue will expand. Putting one in the middle. Okay, so that's the initial clamping done. I don't think we'll need too much more.